Welcome to Secular Sessions, the ultimate destination for authentic conversations and stimulating debates. I'm your host, Raj. My mission is simple: to promote critical thinking and ignite meaningful conversations that inspire curiosity and open-mindedness. Join me on this incredible journey as we navigate through the topics such as science, philosophy, ethics, and the wonders of the natural world. Welcome to Secular Sessions, where critical thinking finds its home. Hi friends, this is Raj from Call Me Atheist. Hope you guys are doing well and staying out of trouble. Today I'm joined by Hadrian. How are you, Hadrian?
Yeah, I'm good, Raj. How are you?
I'm good. So before we start talking, let me introduce you to my audience. I met Hadrian on Twitter, now known as X, and he posts a lot of stuff about religious and showing the religious bigotry. So I really liked the things that you posted online. I thought it'd be nice to catch up with you and have a one-on-one conversations about your background, where you come from, and all that stuff. I'm really happy that you joined me today. So, where are you from, Hadrian?
I'm originally from Bangladesh, but I've never lived there, only went there for vacations. I actually grew up in the Middle East and now I live in the West.
Oh, wow, that's good. And what do you do for a living? Just a random ballpark?
Yeah, I don't want to get very specific, but I
Mhm.
will say that, I work in real estate.
Oh, good. So, what made you think about atheism?
So, it's not something I thought about it. It's just, it was a journey to find the true God or the higher power.
Hmm.
And it was a continuous struggle for multiple years.
Hmm.
And then eventually I came to the conclusion that there isn't any God. So that's how I became an atheist. But yeah.
Cool. And which religion did you come from?
I came out from Islam.
Hmm.
But right after leaving Islam, I did not become an atheist. I was following evangelical Christianity
Oh,
for up
wow.
to 2 years. And then I finally came out of that. And then I became an atheist.
I see. So, from Islam, what made you leave Islam?
Oh, there are so many things. I don't even know where to start if from. But in general, I will say it is the failure of morality in the religion
Hmm.
and how it is not up to the standards of our time. That was the biggest issue that I had in Islam,
Hmm.
and even now, but even back then, I was young. I was about to finish my high school,
Hmm.
and the morality it caused me to research more and more about Islam, and trying to find how can I justify Islamic morality in today's age and time.
Hmm.
And I tried my best, like within my own conscience, I tried to convince myself that no, this is the true religion. So I have to accept this morality some way
Hmm.
or the other.
Yeah,
And then eventually, I wasn't able to do it. My conscience kicked in, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Let me like if there is a God, then either like I will keep searching for him or her or whatever, but
Mhm.
it is definitely not this religion. I cannot be in this religion anymore.
Cool. Morality is a funny subject. Is there an example of what you were thinking at that time? Like which part of morality or what did you think was wrong doesn't match up with current standards?
Yeah, and there are many, but the most obnoxious one was the issue of sex slavery.
Mm.
Now, because I come from Bangladesh, I'm not sure if how many people would know this, but since your audience is Indian, you would know that Bangladesh had a war with Pakistan in 1971. So, and there
Mhm.
were almost like 100 to 200,000 rape cases. So I come from a family where this topic was always there. And so one thing I always knew that, rape is wrong. No, or
I
it's
see.
terrible. It is absolutely against it. So it's not even a question. Then comes sex slavery, right? In Islam, it is. It happened during the Prophet's time. It happened after the Prophet. Many Muslim conquerors, leaders, warriors, whatever you want to call them, they practiced it. Very recently, ISIS did it as well. So, but back then, I couldn't get my head around the fact that, a religion that focused so much on purity, especially, trying to convince its followers to practice abstinence from immoral sex or whatever, somehow permitted sex slavery, then of course that was a slippery slope to every other immoral issues I found. There are many more, like the way how Islam outgroups its followers from its non-believers. Almost every religion does it, every different kind of ideology does it, but in Islam it is very black and white. Like either you are with us or you are completely against us. So either way, we're going to fight you, either through the sword or through our words or through our government or through our attitude even. And this is something I saw in practice happening in the Middle East. So that's the second immoral thing, according to me. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
No, that's all right, man. It's always good to listen about this stuff and the things that you're saying at the moment. I can kind of draw tangent or parallels to my own ex-religion, which was Hinduism. But I was intrigued by sex slavery. So in Islam, is it in some book or is it written somewhere that you're allowed to keep slaves as sexual labor?
Yes, it is in the Quran itself. I will have to look up the verse. I cannot remember right now, but it is absolutely in there.
Okay, so when does this sex slavery happen? Like, is it when when you used to go to a war and then um, capture someone? I don't know. A bit of background would be helpful.
Yes, sure. So what happened is how the verse came in the Quran itself was when Muhammad, he ended up waging war against other Arabic tribes and Christians and Jews. So what happened was so the sex slavery, it is directly related to jihad, which was war. And what transpired in history was the way they attacked that, the village or the city or the settlement of the non-believers, they killed all the male warriors and the male civilians, and excluding children. I mean, and that would mean pre-pubescent children. Anyone with puberty and above were killed.
Oh, wow.
So that left with a lot of non-Muslim women and in their hands. So what they did, what the verse says is basically that you're allowed to have sex with your wives or it's a term that the Quran uses called right hands possession. Okay. Right hands possession are basically those non-Muslim women that were captured during war after, of course, they killed all the male non-Muslims. And there you go. That is sex slavery right there. So their status was different than the Muslim women. They were used, primarily for sex and just, as a servant in the household. They were actually distributed amongst the Muslim fighters like cattle. These are all in history, and by the way, they followed this everywhere. They did this in Persia, like even after Muhammad, they did this in Persia. They did this in Egypt. They did this in Damascus against other pagan and Christian women. And they did this in Iberia, in the Mediterranean, you name it, all the way up to Spain. This issue of taking sex slaves was always there.
I see. I wonder how many sexually transmitted diseases were at that time.
I'm surprised how did STDs did not kill so many of them at the time. It is, I still don't understand how.
Yeah, maybe they were using pig skin as a condom, but sorry, pig is haram in Islam.
Yeah.
Sure. And yeah, with your second point that you were saying about, every religion has a superiority complex. It's like my God's got a bigger dick than your God. So,
Yeah,
that's that sort of stuff. And it's funny. I don't know why they think that like that. Most people are born in their religion or in their religious households that dictates their religion. It's not like they've done something special. They just won a sperm lottery, I suppose, and that was it. But everybody feels really superior. Um, I
it,
really don't know how else to answer that.
no, exactly. I know I've seen that in Islam, of course, and I asked that question at a very early age, which was, you know, Allah is saying that we are superior to the non-Muslims,
Mhm.
and I am a born Muslim.
Yeah.
But what, what did I do that I earned this lottery? I mean, I'm thankful. At the time, I was really, really thankful.
Yes.
But it kept on bothering me because I grew up in a very diverse society. I had a lot of non-Muslim friends,
Mhm.
and sometimes during Islamic classes, this thing used to bother me that my non-Muslim friends just stood up and they went outside to play because for them it wasn't mandatory to study Islam, but
Mhm.
and I'm like, these guys are going to grow up. They're going to do whatever job they do. Then they're going to die and then they're going to burn in hell for eternity. For what?
Mm.
And I'm just going to go to heaven. I mean, I'm grateful, but it's not settling well.
Mm.
And then this is how they keep on doing this. Like every religion has a superiority complex in some way or the other.
Yeah.
And this is why I find them equally obnoxious. I find Islam the most, but in general, I find all religions just outdated completely, entirely, and they shouldn't be allowed in this world anymore.
Oh, yes. I think I said it in the last secular session or maybe before that religion is a software that has never been updated and it can't be used these days. Uh,
No,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say no. Many tried to update it, but the problem is even the patch is not really that good. So it's just the source software itself is so corrupted. There is no update. I don't think you can update it with anything anymore. You just have to like let it go entirely.
I think it's a saying in English, you can't polish a turd.
Yeah.
So, with that, concept of hell, because you were in Islam and Christianity, I'm going to get to Christianity in a moment. But what is the concept of hell? Is it different in both religion or is it exactly the same?
It is, I would say, pretty much the same. It
Okay.
is like in Christianity, it's just a standard that you're gonna burn in hell, you're gonna burn in the fire
Mhm.
for eternity, and you'll be damned. I can't remember the specifics though. But whereas in Islam, it is like, it is like, how do I say this? It's like a sadistic prison system with
Mhm.
hierarchical level of punishments.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you are a non-Muslim who was sexually promiscuous,
Mhm.
then your skin is going to be burned. Then that skin will be replaced with new skin, and that skin will be burned, and
Mhm.
it will keep on continuing until for eternity. If you
Mhm.
are a woman, who was immodest, and immodest again means sexually,
Mhm.
that means that your head is going to be exploded. It's going to be replaced with a new head.
Mhm.
That's going to be exploded. And it will keep on continuing for eternity. There are many different kinds of it. Some of them are in the Quran itself. Others are in the interpretations and other oral traditions. So the concept of hell in Islam is basically eternal punishment or infinite punishment for a
Mhm.
finite crime.
Oh, I see.
Uh, yeah, it's very similar to Christianity, but Islam, I just know more about Islam because that's
Mhm.
my main forte.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it for Islamic Jahannam or hell,
Yeah.
that's how they call it.
Yeah, I've heard the word Jahannam, I think. That's probably what you're saying. Yeah. It's funny that every every sin starts from a kinky mind. Like if you're sexually promiscuous, basically at the end it boils down to if you don't have sex with me, then you're burned in hell. Because if
Yeah,
you're a
pretty much.
Muslim, Yeah. If you're a Muslim, you have sex with Muslim, all good. Your sins are forgotten. If you have sex with a non-Muslim, no, you gotta burn in hell. You can't go anywhere else. And so with multiple marriages in Islam, like you can have more than one wife. I don't know what the limit is, but in today's world, do you know in the West there are actually Muslims who have more than one wives?
Yes, in the West, well, dual marriage is illegal in most countries.
Hmm.
For a Muslim, the maximum limit is 4 women that you
Okay.
can marry.
Hmm.
Uh, in the West, what they do, if Muslims really, really want to practice polygamy, what they do is they have one legal marriage that's there, like
Okay.
with lawyers and basic marriages that happens.
Mhm.
So if they want to get a second marriage, what they do is in their home country they do the religious wedding with the other woman,
Okay.
but they never legally ratify it through a lawyer.
Mhm.
Like that marriage never gets like it never gets registered with the
Okay.
government.
Mhm.
So that's not a marriage, like according to our modern laws, but according to the religious laws, that
Mhm.
marriage is accepted. So that's how they practice polygamy.
Yeah.
But more and there are probably few in the West itself. If some Muslim man wants to practice it, what they do is pretty much they have one legal wedding,
Mhm.
one legal wife,
Yeah.
and in the West in itself, they will have another partner or common law partnership, but
Mhm.
which is not a legal wedding, but they can keep those kind of wives as well. So that's how they like what do you I'm forgetting that English word. That's how they override the system.
I see.
Uh,
That's cool. There's a question in probably everybody's mind, but nobody's gonna ask, so I will, because I'm different. So with multiple wives and they practice polygamy, it's polygamy for the guy, right? Mostly because he's got multiple wives. But do they have like, is there something in Quran which depicts that they can have threesomes or foursomes?
It's really funny. And I don't know why did you say that nobody asks this? Because even I asked myself this, many
Because I mean,
ex-Muslims
it's
do.
everybody says like you should respect religion, you should respect religion, and like no, I don't. I respect people who have good ideas. They can be religious, I don't care. But this sort of a question, if you ask in public, what do you think the reaction is gonna be? So I'm like, okay, let's ask now.
Well, there is nothing direct that says that, threesome or
Oh,
foursomes are
that's
allowed.
obviously it's gonna be well manipulated language, which essentially means what we're
You-
gonna
No,
hear now.
no, you know what, Raj? It is surprising though, because this twosome, threesome, or foursome,
Mhm.
it's not actually very modern. It happened during the Roman times. They had
Yes.
orgies. Actually, in the
Mm.
Greek times, they had.
Yeah.
It's surprising that Muhammad or any of those sexual perverts with him,
Mm. Mm.
nobody came up with this. Nobody said, well, if we are allowed to have so many wives and sex slaves on top of that, which is
Mhm.
in the limit, the number of sex slaves you can have is infinite, as many as you can get. Nobody asked this question like, hey, can I have a bunch of twosome or threesome? It's almost like they didn't even have that concept in their head.
Yeah.
At some point, I'm like really, really, really thankful they did not,
Mhm. Yeah.
because Islamic, uh, to me, as I understand it now, Islamic marriage is in itself very akin to marital rape, considering on how it is performed. Like the woman has no choice. A
Okay.
woman cannot choose her own partner
Mhm.
in Islam. They can't, religiously speaking. I mean,
Yeah.
Muslims do it now,
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
probably, but according to religious ethic, they can't.
Mhm.
So to me, that is marital rape. If threesome, foursome, or whatever was allowed
Mhm.
directly, that would mean to me like one man is raping multiple women at the same time, and it's like I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah. Because the reason I asked that question is because, with twosome and threesome, there's a consent involved, right? Whichever party wants to do it, whatever. But in a religious text where they consider sex as a sin, it's funny that they're allowed to have sex with whoever they like. Like I've seen some documentaries in which a guy likes another girl. They just go to the father and then say, "Oh yeah, I've got that many camels." And then, can she be my wife? So as you were saying, that girl doesn't have any choice. They can, their father will just say, "Okay, you go with this person and that's it." So I find it really oppressive. Um, but a lot of the people still, even women, they say like, you've got to have a good husband. And I'm like, how do you know it's a good husband? You've just seen him once. So that's why I was asking, are they forced to do a lot of other things while they're married?
Well, then, to be honest, I've never been married, so in
Oh, okay.
Islamic wedding, I don't know.
Mhm.
But yeah, forced sex is it's very common, unfortunately, and I'm sure it happens a lot more than we know in the Muslim communities, especially if they're not, in the higher up in the socioeconomic class. So,
Mhm.
vast majority of the marriages are arranged. They approach the father, and the father thinks like, oh, does this person have a good job, and can he provide for my daughter? And that's the criteria itself, right? That
Mhm.
like that's the criteria, nothing else. Like, does he have any criminal background? Will he even beat my daughter? Like, none of it. And they get ready. They go like, okay, this guy looks good. इसकी शक्ल ठीक है थोड़ा बहुत manage हो जाएगा
Yeah.
और कमाता भी है. So,
Mhm.
why not? Let's get him and my daughter married. And so yeah, it does. It still continues, which is why I hate this religion, and again, religion in general, because it, we shouldn't be having these ideologies anymore. Not at this time anymore, at least.
No, definitely not. We should refine it. I mean, there must be some good things about Islam, right? And then we can pick those. For lack of a better word, we should cherry pick the good things in any religion. Like the aspect of community is very nice, but it does come with a lot of baggage. So we should try and avoid that baggage. I don't know how we can do it. I just want people to think critically. But you mentioned something important that struck my nerve was beating their wives. So I've heard that it is okay for a Muslim guy to beat their wife. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. And it is again directly in the Quran itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, go on.
So beating their wife, it's in the Quran, right?
Yeah.
Um, how does women react to it? Or do you know any person who is a ex-Muslim or a woman ex-Muslim uh, who had that experience, or did she say how was it, or is that the reason why she's an ex-Muslim or something along those lines?
So when it comes to ex-Muslim women,
Mhm.
they do have that trauma. Some of them that I know of, on Twitter, they were direct victims of domestic violence. Now, the issue is whether her husband was religiously following the Quran, which is why he was hitting her, or
Mhm.
he was just a misogynist, and uh, and that's why he was hitting her. But regardless, the point they come to is Islam does allow beating their wives. I mean, Muslim apologists, they'll do a lot of mental gymnastics on that verse.
Yeah.
They say, oh no, it means to discipline her, quote unquote discipline, or bit lightly, whatever that's supposed to mean.
What
But
was-
like, which how do you lightly beat your wife so that she listens to you after the argument or fight that you guys were having? Like, doesn't make any sense. Like, which is why we say that no, this was meant to
Mhm.
be hard enough are effective enough that the wife gets frightened and, she becomes subservient to her husband. And we have many examples in the Islamic literature where, women or wives were getting whipped by their husbands, complaints were being made and nothing was done. In fact, it was being said that, hey, this is allowed. So wife beating, so ex-Muslim women, they leave for various reasons, not just because of course. For being beaten by their husbands. Some of them are, but that is not the sole reason why they left Islam. Like when it comes to women, they leave Islam because probably at this point, I think Islam is the most oppressive religion for any women. Yes, completely oppressive, completely prison-like on every level. Like, being covered up or not having rights to education or be only, her duty is to serve her husband and stay and work for her household or not being able to choose her partner, getting half a share in inheritance. I mean, and then even if her husband chooses to get another wife, she has absolutely no say in it. Religiously, she cannot stop him from doing that. Then, of course, getting beaten, like she's allowed to be beaten by her husband. Then she also has to provide him with sex whenever he needs it. Not providing sex would mean she's committing a sin. So, and then it doesn't only end in this world. In the next world, her husband will get 72 or more virgins. And she does not get to have 72 male virgins for herself. So
I was going to ask you that question exactly when you were talking. Like a guy, when he passes away and goes to Jannat, he gets 72 woman virgins. But a girl, if she goes to Jannat, how does Jannat look for her?
Exactly. That's a very good question. It's almost unanswerable. There you go. That's another issue. She is supposed to be the madame of those 72 virgins, apparently. That is her standard. I am not kidding.
Is it like a pimp?
Well, Allah is a pimp. Muhammad did pimp his followers. What's fun fact that a lot of these verses were apparently revealed to him before going to war in order to motivate young soldiers that, hey, if you die, you're gonna get a lot of pussy. Literally. You just have to dig deep and you'll find it. It's astonishing,
Yeah, but remember, sex is sinful.
Sex is sinful if you sleep with another Muslim man's wife. That's
it. So आप किसी भी मुस्लिम की बीवी के साथ सोते हो, that is sin.
Oh no. I was just kidding around. Like, of course, that is sin. But if you go to a prostitute, that is a sin. If you have premarital sex with any woman who is not a sex slave, is a sin.
Okay. So if you go to a prostitute and don't pay the money, is that a sin?
So you will have two sins. I don't know how that's going to work according to Allah, but yeah, that's a sin.
We can make stuff up. I think the whole religion is made up. So whoever was in power obviously sounds like a pervert or really wanted to have a lot of sex, right? So that's why it's like, okay, I like sex. So women can have sex with me. How can I make them have sex with me and not question it ever? So there you go, Quran. My answer to your sex problems.
I wanted to share this quickly, which is when you read Muhammad's life, you will find one thing very interesting, which is at the age of 25, he married a 40-year-old woman named Khadija. That was his first marriage. And at that time in the 7th century Arabia, this is very uncommon. You never see a young man marrying an older woman. But in Muhammad's case, it was done. Well, he was actually rejected by another woman. Her family rejected Muhammad, thankfully. And that's when he married Khadija. She was a businesswoman. She was a very successful businesswoman for her time. And after Muhammad, became sick and called himself a prophet, and then Khadija died. It is after the fact that Khadija died, that's when you see his inner pervertness come out in the shape of his prophethood. That's when he's marrying left, right, and center. He's accepting sex slaves. He's going to war and taking sex slaves. He's distributing sex slaves. So, a lot of us, we just think that, he was mentally sick as a kid. We have references for that as well. And then, he was probably suffering from a lot of issues in his younger times. And then he was probably forced to marry Khadija in a way. So Khadija's first partner had passed away. And now, because she was already old, she was 40. So at that day and age, it's again very difficult for a woman to marry someone else, right? But if in Muhammad's case, he was a bastard. Okay, he was not really a bastard. He knew who his father was, but he was an orphan. He didn't grow up with his parents. So, and then he really didn't have that family background that any woman would be considering him as a potential partner. So we see that marriage happening, a marriage of convenience. But, Muhammad always had it in him that, he's not good enough. So, I'm not surprised that after Khadija's death, he's like, fuck this. I'm just going... now that some of these clowns really think that I'm a prophet and they're willing to die for what I'm saying, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And that's exactly what he did.
Oh, yep. Very pervert dude. And so just out of curiosity, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'll just ask you. So Prophet Muhammad is just a prophet, not a god itself, but the god is Allah. Right?
Yes, according to Islamic theology.
Cool. And then with the prophet, so everybody believed him just like Jesus, because Jesus was, in some of the variations, is son of God. And Allah is just a prophet or a messenger of God, not Ram Rahim. But so that's why everybody believed him, because he was the sole provider of the message of Allah, or they didn't have any other prophets, so to speak?
So this one is a little bit more complicated. Well, initially no one believed him except for Khadija, his wife.
Yeah, he must have had a big dick. Just kidding. No,
I don't think so. I think he had a small one. But I will say this: so Khadija, no one believed him in the first 10 years. He only, by a very liberal estimate, you can say he had less than 100, like probably up to, I think the number is 93 followers. But the issue that's the first 10 years in Makkah where he was born. But the issue is a few powerful people believed in him because they were related to him through bloodline, like his cousin Ali, his nephew Ali, then Abu Bakr, I think he was his uncle. And Abu Bakr was a powerful name in Makkah at the time. Khadija, his wife, who herself was a businesswoman, very reputable, she believed in him, and a bunch of people here and there who were maybe not that powerful. But initially, the Makkans, they did not believe him at all, except for a select few. But the reason why later on people started to believe in him, which is in Medina, the city which is like, I think, 200 kilometers west of Makkah. So he migrates there. Long story, but I won't get into that. He migrates there with his family after Khadija's death, of course. And then in the city of Medina, what's happening is there were pagans, there were Christians, and there were Jews. So I don't know, this thing is contested, that some of the tribes of Medina, they saw that, hey, Christians and Jews have their own prophets, their own son of God. It seems like God did, kept on sending them prophets and etc. But no one sent anyone to us, right? And then when the word came that, hey, finally an Arab prophet is here, and he's also the final messenger sent to humanity. So because of that, they started to feel like elevated. They were like, oh my goodness, finally a prophet amongst us. Holy shit. And that's where in Medina, where, he got a good chunk of his followers from the Arab pagans. Not that everyone believed in him. Even in Medina, it's not like vast majority believed in him, but he got a really good chunk of followers initially. But
if you tell a lie so many times, then it becomes a truth, right?
Yeah. And I don't even think he knew he was lying, because he was mentally sick. So he probably believed that he was telling the truth.
Yeah, it might be. So with all that morality issues in Islam, I'm sure there are more, and it's going to be like hours and hours of conversations. Maybe we can have it again. But what made you jump to Christianity? Like, what was appealing to you in Christianity that you jumped there?
So one of the reasons was at the time I was like, I'm not happy with Islam, but I know that there has to be a God.
I see.
So if it's not Islam, what should be the next one? For me, it was Christianity, because that was the closest religion. And at the time, I didn't really find that many immoral issues in Christianity. Not that it's not there, but I wasn't well versed with it. So I thought, I had a lot of fallacies in my head, and I went with the fallacy of popularity. I was saying, okay, Christians are the largest in numbers, and, Christian polemic arguments against Islam is making sense. And then I finally read the New Testament. And now, because of how bad the Quran is, I found the New Testament to be way better. I mean, I kid you not. If you compare only the New Testament with the Quran, you will see that, oh my goodness, this could really be from God. I don't know, because it is coherent. It is well structured. It is making sense. Except for why would God even kill his own son? But whatever. But I'm like, okay, I want to believe in God. I'm sure there is a God. If it's not Islam, then what? And now I read the New Testament. I'm like, okay, it has to be Christianity then. That's why I started following Christianity.
Yeah, Jesus hired better writers than Prophet Muhammad did.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So maybe that's why. And when you joined Christianity, how did you feel? Like, was it completely different to Islam? Like when you started going to church, I'm assuming. Like, how was the community treated you that you came from an ex-Muslim background?
Oh, actually, I couldn't go to the church because I was still in a Muslim country, but I was in touch with a lot of evangelical Christians in America. So I was in touch with them, and, they were mentoring me. I was reading the Bible, the New Testament. And
can you buy a Bible in a Muslim country?
No, you can't. I didn't buy it, but I downloaded it. I downloaded the PDF version. Yeah. So that's what I was, and I started reading the New Testament. And I know it's going to sound weird, but I really felt like it was the true religion again. I felt like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit was there. Jesus is the Son of God. He died for my sins. And the primary messaging of evangelical Christianity and Islam are very different. Evangelical Christianity is like, well, you have to allow Jesus in your heart, in your life. The Holy Spirit is going to take control of your life. He's the one that's going to be guiding you. All you have to do is believe in Jesus as the Son of God, and he died for our sins. And, you worship him and no one else. And that's it. And I'm like, okay, that sounds so much more simpler without the baggage of so many immoral garbage that Islam has. And I really felt it. I used to listen to hymns. I used to read the Bible. I used to visit websites and attend prayer requests secretly. But I really didn't have any problems with Christianity until like a year or a half later.
I see.
So So yeah.
So you went through the honeymoon period and then you just looked at it like, oh, well, it's like the same old religion. But
Yes,
yeah, yeah, when you were
sorry.
saying about the weird, like it felt weird, weird. But I think when I was coming from ex-Hindu background to atheism, it felt weird because
Yeah.
I'm always used to thinking that there is a God or everything that's going wrong in my life, somebody is writing a better story for me. So that's why it's making me go through that so be, I can have the strength to accept my new life that is going to be wonderful because God is preparing me for that life, right? And all that bollocks. But so when you were saying it was weird that you felt Christianity was better, I don't think it was weird. I think it was a normal reaction. Things which are weird
Right.
are the things which are not we are not used to.
Yeah. Yeah. You can say that.
Yeah, once we get used to the things, then things are normal. I mean, in India, we used to have squat toilets, and now the other thing came up, the sitting ones. It's bad for posture, but you know, we got used to it.
Right.
Yeah. But of toilet humor I like to include in my conversations. So, so when you moved to West, did you just go to the church or not really?
Not really. So what happened was, so those 1.5 years when I was a Christian, I was still in the Muslim country, right?
Mhm.
And I was finally being less depressed. I was finally being happy a little bit. I had already made up my mind that I have to get out of the Muslim country. That's for sure, because I
Okay.
wouldn't be able to practice my faith openly. And
Mhm.
my parents did not even know
Okay.
any of that, right? That
Mhm.
I left Islam. I'm a Christian. I don't give a shit about Islam anymore. They didn't even know, and I made up my mind I'm leaving. So, but what happened was, I am at the verge of me leaving the Muslim country and coming to Canada.
Mhm.
That's where my problems with Christianity started to develop because, okay, sure, I read the New Testament.
Yeah.
The only horrible book probably is the book of Revelations, which is very graphic. It's like Dante's Inferno, but 1,000 times worse. But I also started to read the Old Testament. Now, the Old Testament is also the same God, the Father, who is the God of Israel in it. And
Mhm.
that's where I'm like, oh my goodness. Because as much as horrible as the Islamic literature is, the biblical literature is even more detailed about the same immoral practices.
With gory details, it's yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh my goodness. It almost now, see, when I read the New Testament, I'm like, this is a different God
Mhm.
than Allah.
Mhm.
When I read the Old Testament, I'm like, nope, this is the same Allah, the same
It's
one.
it's his brother, his real brother, twin brother.
His twin brother, not even twin brother. I thought it was the exact same one. Same
Okay.
immoral practices, exact same, more detailed. And now that's where I'm like, oh my goodness. Now this is not turning out to be good because now where am I going to find this God? Because my faith is going away. Like I'm losing faith in Christianity. Of course, I started to research a lot more
Mhm.
about Christianity itself, and I'm like, none of this makes sense. The Trinity doesn't make sense. The sacrificial lamb concept doesn't make sense. Immaculate conception doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
None of it's making sense. So, is there even a God? Even if if he or she is there, then which religion? Is
Mhm.
it Baha'ism or Hinduism,
Yeah.
Sikhism? So I started to, again, I was in the search of to find that God again, all over again. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm searching up a little bit about other religions. And then I'm like, okay, this is not really appealing to me as much. The philosophy is not really hitting me. And of course, there are, again, issues in those religions as well. So now
Must be
that's where
frustrating.
Oh, it was one of the worst times in my life. I'm like,
Yeah.
in Hindi, there is this saying, ढूंढने से तो भगवान भी मिल जाता है, right? So I took
Yes.
it really literally. और मैं
Uh-huh.
कितना ढूंढूं? How much
Uh,
will I search? I'm like searching and searching, and
yeah.
I'm not able to find him. Now that's where I started to be like, okay, that's where I started to research about science overall, about evolution, anthropology, ethnogenesis, and abiogenesis, a little bit about cosmology. Then Yuval Noah Harari's first edition came out in 2011. I think the book *Sapiens*.
Yes,
And
I would like to interrupt you. Sorry, Hadrian, but this question has to land here. So you started researching in science, but the religions that you come from actually prohibits science in the most ways because it contradicts Allah. So how was it for you when you actually started to research on science? Was it a bit like I shouldn't do that, or was it like let's just give it a go?
No, what's surprising is it's not that they don't tell you to reject science per se.
Yeah.
What they do is they reject the concepts that don't fit with religion.
Yes.
And they appropriate the concepts that do, or they try to mistranslate and, claim like, oh, we already knew the science. So in the Muslim community, they're not really anti-science, generally as people understand. They're anti-science, especially only if that science directly contradicts what Islam is trying to say.
Oh yeah, that Gomutra like people.
Yeah, we have camel mutra. So
okay, good.
and then they try to do mental gymnastics on that as well. So when I started researching about science, I was searching about science that Islam was already telling me is wrong or incorrect, like evolution. So when I got that, when I understood what the basic premise of evolution is, this is like what 2010, 2011. Internet was there, but the amount of information is not like the way it is right now.
Yeah, but so it was dial-up mostly, I think.
Yeah, it was dial-up and broadband.
Yeah.
But it was there. I mean, I don't mean the internet connection. I mean the content online.
Of course.
So the content was very limited still, right? And so I got my hands onto whatever I could, as I understood, genetic evolution, then social evolution, then of course, physical evolution that came with. I understood those concepts. Then Yuval Noah Harari's first edition came out in 2011 called *Sapiens*. That's basically, you can say, a very brief history of humans from the very beginning up until 2011. So it's like a 60 million year old history summarized in a couple of 100 years of pages. Now that book gave me some head start, and I'm like, okay, so if God doesn't exist, how did we develop religions? Why is religion even there in the first place? And then I found out that we have this survivability factor in our lives. We have an agent in our head that does these threat assessments, and that's how we came to the conclusion that there must be a higher power that's controlling us, because our ancient human ancestors weren't able to make sense of thunders and earthquakes and tsunamis and so many things, right? And I'm like, okay, now see, these things make sense because there are so many religions all around the world, and most of them don't agree with each other, even if there are similarities, but there are still differences. So that's where I started to learn, like, oh shit, if Christianity is gone, I'm not finding Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism appealing. And Buddhism is atheistic, but it's very philosophical. But I'm like, man, that doesn't work for me. Why should I put myself in a philosophical cult that very significantly distinguishes itself from the other? But that's how it took me a couple of years still, I would say. I mean, I became agnostic by the end of it, but my journey was still going on and on. I was still trying to learn as much as I could about science and religion, and etc. And then finally, I made the decision, there is no God, at least that we know of. And even if there is, he or she or whatever is irrelevant. It doesn't exist. So that's pretty much my journey up until now.
Cool. And if somebody is able to produce an evidence that God is real, would you start believing it?
Oh, absolutely. But then again, it comes, there's another crux to it, which is what is that evidence? Is it material
Oh,
evidence or
yes, of course. You got to verify the evidence. You can't just say, because I said so.
oh yeah, absolutely. If it is material and empirically, it can empirically be proven. Yeah, sure, I will believe in God.
Yeah, it has to be an objective evidence, and I'm waiting for that evidence as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. One of the reasons why I am still doing what I'm doing is because deep down I still want emotionally and emotionally speaking, this is not rational, I will say, is I wanted a higher power to exist.
Mm,
I really, really want it because I know that we humans, we have a lot of diversity in
mm,
both in thought and in our action. And we have a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of problems
yeah.
for which we don't have the right solution as of yet.
Mhm.
We are in a very complicated situation. So I'm like, I want all of this to be fixed.
Mhm.
And I want it to happen in my lifetime, probably by tomorrow or next week or whenever.
Yeah.
If a higher power were to exist and if he were to solve all of our problems personally and collectively,
Yeah.
it would be one of the greatest things to happen.
Mm,
But I can't find that higher power. And people, when they give explanations or quote unquote their evidence,
mm.
that's not evidence. That's just anecdotal evidence or personal experiences or
Yeah.
just philosophical arguments that doesn't prove, and we can't solve our issues just by going with those kinds of arguments. So that's why I'm still talking on Twitter about atheism and
Mhm.
religion,
Yeah.
and etc. Because I think if people can, if they can, if they come to this understanding that we cannot depend on that higher power,
Yeah.
I think it will help them to get out of their tribalistic mindset,
Mhm.
humanize the others as well,
Yeah.
put themselves under one tribe, which is the human tribe, and we can start solving. So I'm not saying we will solve all the problems,
Yes. Yes. Of
but we
course.
can finally start solving the problems we have, because currently religion stops us from finding effective solutions because it's causing a lot of tribalism, right?
Mhm.
So that's my thinking. I'm not saying it's the right, but I'm still learning, and that's why that's why I think that's how I found you and other remarkable atheist
Yes.
people online. So yeah,
Yes. No, it was good to be in touch with you, and hopefully, I'll be able to talk to other atheists on the platform as well. And in regards to what you just said, that people try to solve the problem. I mean, in India, people are focusing on making another Ram Mandir instead of making a properly functioning hospital or an
yeah,
educational institution, not just a building which says school. There should be actual teachers who want to teach, or who
yeah,
wants to, encourage students to critically think about things. I have a friend who believes that he has seen the ghost. He truly believes that. And I'm like, do you want to talk about it? No. He says. So it's hard to ask questions and stuff to some of the people. And yeah, it was a
yeah.
pleasure talking to you, man. I should respect the time as well. But I just had, there is so many questions that I have for you now. It's like,
No, no, you can ask me if you like. I think I can have more 15 minutes, so it's totally up to you.
no, that's all right. I just wanna,
Yeah,
because there's long questions, and I think we should have another 1 hour, 2 hour conversation. Um,
sure,
and
sure.
we'll save it for some other time because I need to digest all of that information as well.
Yeah,
There are a lot of things about Islam that I didn't know about, which I now know, or you have hinted on it, because it's really hard to go and read every book, right? So it's better to ask people who have done the
yeah.
research, who have read the books and stuff. Currently, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita, and it's not the best to read. Um, you know,
I'm learning from your videos, your Bhagavad Gita sessions. I'm so happy that someone is doing that, because on our end, like ex-Muslims or ex-Christians or atheists from other religion, I will say that the most difficult religion, or I shouldn't even call it a religion, but it's Hinduism. you know, and not many people do that in English like you do. So it is like and the problem is when I watch one of your videos,
Mhm.
within a couple of days I forget everything because it's just Hinduism is so complicated for me. But you know, I've made my own playlist. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and I hope you keep on continuing to do so.
Oh, that's all right. I'm trying to get into the reading, and I should read a lot more books. And thank you so much for appreciating my effort. Any last message that you want to give my audience?
Yes, sure. Like I'm assuming most of your audience are atheists as well. But I will say one thing, like, you know, just because someone is an atheist doesn't mean that, you know, they are a good person. So, but I will say this, that becoming one helps you in becoming an atheist helps you become a good person, number one. And I will say this, which is that, you know, again, this is my personal message, right? I'm not even entirely sure that if I want to live in a world where we don't have ideas, you know, I really appreciate religious ideas in a way,
Yeah.
but I will say this, you know, like my personal activism on social media is not even to like dehumanize theists or in people from any religion. And you know, I still support secular humanism, which is the main part of my identity. Like, you know, if you want to go to a mosque, you should have the right to. If you want to go to a mandir, you should have the right to, etc., etc. You should have the right to believe in whatever God you want to, as long as you don't hijack government and society and make legislation and, you know, or discriminate against others. So that's like a very political statement I'm making, but this is my primary message to everyone. Like, I love atheists who are secular humanists, and if they are one of them from your audience, I would love to get in touch with them on Twitter.
Awesome, awesome. And I completely agree with that statement that as long as you don't project your religion on others, as long as you treat others as humans, you know, that's all we want. And on that note, let us think, and you can call me atheist.